Welcome to Cloud Love Sleep Stories. My name is Dana Michelle. I am so glad you're here. Thank you for choosing to spend time with me tonight. Please subscribe if you'd like to know when I post new stories. Tonight, let us journey into a gentle tale that soothes the heart and quiets the mind, where the day's worries can completely melt away. But before we begin, let's take a moment to get settled in. Find your most comfortable position in bed, whether that's snuggled under a blanket or nestled against your pillow. Allow your body to feel supported and completely at ease. Imagine yourself fully immersed in a warm, golden light, a light that holds you gently like a soft embrace, inviting you to let go of anything that does not serve you right now. Take a deep breath in. Fill your lungs with calm, cool air. Hold it for a moment. Now, slowly breathe out, letting all the tension of the day drift away. Repeat this 2 more times, letting each breath take you closer to relaxation. As the story unfolds, feel free to close your eyes and let the soothing imagery carry you into a world of wonder and tranquility. You're in a safe, serene space, ready to drift into a restful sleep. Start to imagine a peaceful forest bathed in moonlight and sunlight. 2 bears, Hutch and Dalia, discover that friendship and love can blossom even in the most unexpected of hearts. Hutch, a strong and independent bear, has long guarded himself from the world, shaped by the hardships of his past and the solitude he has carried. But when he meets Dalia, a gentle and warm-spirited bear who sees beauty in life's smallest moments, his world begins to shift. Let us begin. Hutch lumbered through the underbrush, his paws sinking into the soft moss that blanketed the forest floor. The sun's last rays filtered through the canopy, dappling the world in a mosaic of light and shadow. Hutch had learned to appreciate these quiet moments alone, for they were the times when the weight of the past seemed to ease off his broad shoulders. His life had been a solitary one, not born from choice, but from necessity. The forest's whims could be cruel. Floods had washed away the dens of friends, fires had scorched ancient trees, and winters so harsh they clenched the very marrow in his bones. Hunger was an old adversary, stalking him with more vigilance than any predator. In the face of such relentless trials, attachments became liabilities, a lesson Hutch had absorbed with every loss, every goodbye he hadn't had the chance to utter. The bear's thoughts were interrupted by the rustle of leaves. Instinctively, he paused, sniffing the air. The scent was familiar, yet it carried a sweetness that teased at memories he hadn't allowed himself to fully form. Dalia. Her name was like a songbird's call at dawn, hopeful, tender, a promise of a new day. Hutch watched as she emerged from a thicket of ferns, her coat a rich, dark reddish brown that shimmered with an almost ethereal quality in the fading light. "Good evening, Hutch," Dalia greeted him, her voice as warm as the sun-soaked earth. "Evening," Hutch replied, nodding slightly. He noticed how her presence seemed to soften the edges of his world, smoothing out the creases left by years of solitude. "Join me?" She tipped her head towards a berry-laden bush nearby, her invitation simple and without expectation. Hutch hesitated, his innate caution wrestling with the inexplicable pull he felt towards her. She was unlike any other, he could sense it. Dalia bore a lightness about her that belied the hardships of their shared world. Her spirit seemed untethered to the sorrows that had anchored him to the ground for so long. They sat together as twilight embraced the forest, the symphony of nocturnal creatures rising around them. Hutch felt a quietude settle in his chest, a sensation both unfamiliar and comforting. Beside Dalia, the solitary path he'd tread for so long suddenly branched off, leading towards possibilities he'd never dared to imagine. In the company of this remarkable bear, Hutch began to entertain the notion that perhaps life held more than the harsh lessons etched into his memory. Maybe, just maybe, there was space for something as boundless and profound as unconditional love. The next morning, they decided to go on a walk together. Dalia was not like the other bears. There was something about her that transcended the daily struggles of forest life. She moved with an elegance that belied her strength, and her eyes held a depth of kindness that seemed infinite. Hutch watched her now as she approached from the opposite side of the clearing, her coat a lighter shade of reddish brown that shimmered in the soft glow of sunlight cascading through the trees. "Good morning, Hutch," she greeted him, her voice a melodious hum that resonated with the natural harmony around them. "Morning, Dalia," Hutch replied, his voice gruff, yet tinged with a warmth that he reserved only for her. She settled beside him, her presence comforting. A breeze stirred her fur, carrying with it the fragrance of wild flowers and fresh earth. It was a scent that Hutch had come to associate with her, a blend of the forest's bounty and her own unique essence. "Have you seen the new blossoms by the South Ridge?" Dalia asked, her gaze lingering on the horizon where the forest climbed towards the sky. Hutch shook his head. "I haven't ventured that far in a while." "Come, let me show you. They remind me of you in a way," she said, her eyes glinting with a playful challenge. Curiosity piqued, Hutch followed her lead. Together, they moved with a grace that felt like a dance, their steps synchronized as if they were two parts of a single entity. The forest seemed to welcome them, the trees arching overhead to create a verdant tunnel through which they passed. As they reached the South Ridge, the sight that greeted them took Hutch's breath away. A sea of flowers bloomed beneath the canopy, their petals a vibrant tapestry of colors. But one flower stood out among the rest, a rare bloom that mirrored the hue of Dahlia's brownish auburn coat. "See, just like you," Dalia murmured, her voice soft with emotion. Hutch studied the flower, noting its sturdy stem and delicate petals. It was resilient, yet carried an air of undeniable beauty. It was then that he understood what Dalia meant. The flower was a testament to survival through adversity, much like himself, and yet it held a grace that he had only ever seen reflected in her. "Thank you, Dalia," Hutch said, his voice laden with a gratitude he seldom expressed. "You always see the good in things." Dalia brushed her snout against his cheek, a gesture that filled his heart with a warmth he had never known before her. "And you, Hutch, have so much good within you, more than you realize." They spent hours amid the flowers, watching as bees flitted from blossom to blossom, their industrious hum a counterpoint to the stillness of the forest. Dalia spoke of the plants and animals with a wisdom that came from years of careful observation, and Hutch found himself hanging on every word. It was in moments like these that he could feel the walls he'd built around himself begin to crumble. Dahlia's unwavering belief in him, her ability to see beyond his tough exterior, reached places in his heart that he'd locked away long ago. "Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I hadn't met you," Hutch confessed as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Perhaps we were meant to find each other, Dahlia suggested, her voice a soothing balm to his uncertainties. Maybe our paths were always destined to cross. Hutch considered this, the idea that their meeting was fated. The concept was foreign to him, but in the light of Dahlia's conviction, it didn't seem so implausible. She had become his compass, guiding him through the maze of his own doubts and fears. "Destiny or not," Hutch said, his gaze meeting hers, "I'm grateful for every moment with you." Dahlia's response was a smile that lit up her face, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared. Their relationship was built on respect and independence. It was an unspoken promise, a commitment to stand by one another through the ebb and flow of life in the forest. As dusk settled around them, Hutch and Dalia made their way back to the heart of the forest. They moved through the twilight, their silhouettes merging with the encroaching night. The stars began to emerge, pinpricks of light in the darkening sky, and the world around them hushed in reverence to the approaching night. "Look at the stars, Hutch," Dahlia whispered, her voice barely above the rustle of leaves. "They're like tiny guides, reminding us that there's so much more out there." Hutch gazed upward, the constellations telling stories of ancient times and distant worlds. In that vast expanse of space, his worries seemed insignificant, his past sorrows mere whispers carried away by the wind. "Maybe," he mused, "they're a bit like us, separate but part of something greater." "Exactly," Dahlia agreed, her eyes reflecting the celestial glow. "Together, we're part of the forest story, and it's a beautiful tale indeed." Their path led them to a secluded den, nestled against the base of a towering oak. It was their sanctuary, a place where they could retreat from the world and simply be. Hutch felt a sense of peace envelop him as they settled into the cozy space, their bodies close, sharing warmth. In the shelter of their den, surrounded by the timeless forest, Hutch and Dalia drifted into slumber. Their dreams were intertwined, a tapestry woven from threads of love and companionship. They were two bears, two souls connected by a force as enduring as the ancient woods that cradled them. And as the night deepened, the forest whispered its age-old secrets to the stars, bearing witness to a love that was as natural and profound as the earth itself. The next morning, the forest was alive with the rustle of leaves and the chatter of woodland creatures as Dahlia meandered through the underbrush, her warm brown eyes twinkling with delight at every small wonder. A chipmunk scurried across her path, pausing to perch on a stone, its cheeks bulging with gathered nuts. Dahlia watched fondly, a soft chuff escaping her as she sat back on her haunches, admiring the little creature's industriousness. "Busy day?" she asked in a gentle rumble, though she knew the chipmunk wouldn't answer. It was more about sharing the moment, acknowledging the life that thrived all around her, the very essence of the forest that she so loved. As the chipmunk dashed off, she turned her attention skyward, where songbirds flitted between branches, their melodies weaving a tapestry of sound that filled the air with music. With a contented sigh, Dahlia shifted her gaze to the canvas of green and gold above her, watching as sunlight dappled through the leaves. Her heart swelled with an optimism that was as much a part of her as her thick fur and strong limbs. The forest, for all its trials and tribulations, was a place of endless magic to Dahlia, and she made it her purpose to nurture every bit of it. A young rabbit, hesitant and trembling, edged out from a thicket, its nose twitching rapidly. Dalia approached slowly, her movements deliberate and non-threatening. She nudged a cluster of clover toward the timid creature with a gentle paw, encouraging it to eat. "There you go, little one," she murmured softly, her voice laced with whimsy. "Feast and grow strong." And so her morning continued, a dance of care and kinship with the forest denizens. She paused to free a butterfly caught in a spider's abandoned web, watched over a family of hedgehogs as they foraged, and even carefully guided a young deer to a stream for a drink. Amidst this tender tableau, Hutch watched from a distance, his dark blue eyes following Dahlia's every move with a mixture of awe and skepticism. How could any bear wear their heart so openly, so unguarded? His own life had taught him the perils of such vulnerability, every loss a stark reminder that attachments could be painful. Yet here was Dahlia, dispensing love as freely as the river offered water. He couldn't help but marvel at her grace, the way she moved like a melody through the woods, touching lives without expecting anything in return. It was a foreign concept to him, this boundless giving, but it drew him in despite his reservations. Hutch remained rooted to the spot, his large frame almost blending into the bark of the trees that surrounded him. His grizzled fur, marked by scars and the passage of time, stood in stark contrast to Dahlia's sleek coat, which seemed to shimmer with an inner light. She stepped closer to him, and Hutch felt a strange warmth spread through him, a sensation that seemed to soften the edges of his cynicism. He looked at Dahlia, really looked at her, and saw not just another bear, but a wellspring of hope, a beacon in his often dark world. In that simple gesture, Hutch continued to feel the barriers he'd built around himself tremble. Dahlia's acceptance of him, just as he was, a bear scarred by life and hardened by loss, was a gift he hadn't known he'd been longing for. Dahlia smiled at him, her soft brown eyes reflecting a love as vast and mysterious as the forest itself, a love that asked for nothing in return but offered everything. In the quiet company of each other, with the forest humming with life around them, Hutch could feel the stirrings of something profound, an ethereal thread woven between two souls, a connection that defied explanation. And for the first time, he wondered if he might just trust in that feeling, trust in the love that Dahlia so effortlessly embodied. They spent the rest day independently coexisting quietly and comfortably in each other's company. It was in these moments Hutch really appreciated the sweeter side of life. As dawn broke over the forest the following morning, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, an uneasy stillness settled over the land. Hutch sensed something was not right. The usual chorus of birdsong was absent, replaced by an eerie silence that sent a shiver down Hutch's spine. He emerged from his den, his senses on high alert, scanning the tree line for any sign of danger. It was then that he caught the acrid scent of smoke on the breeze, faint but unmistakable. Panic gripped his heart as memories of past fires flashed through his mind, the chaos, the loss, the struggle to survive. Without hesitation, he set off towards Dahlia's den, his massive form moving with surprising agility through the underbrush. He found her already awake, her eyes wide with concern. "Hutch," she breathed, worry evident in her voice. "Can you smell the smoke too?" He nodded grimly. "We need to warn the others. The wind's picking up. If there's a fire, it could spread quickly." Together, they raced through the forest, their voices raised in urgent calls to rouse their fellow creatures. The smoke grew thicker, stinging their eyes and making it difficult to breathe. In the distance, they could hear the ominous crackling of flames, a sound that sent terror coursing through the veins of every forest dweller. As they reached a clearing, they encountered a group of panicked animals, deer with wide, frightened eyes, foxes darting nervously back and forth, and birds circling overhead, their cries of distress echoing through the trees. Hutch and Dalia exchanged a glance, silently acknowledging the gravity of the situation. "We need to lead them to safety," Dalia said, her voice steady despite the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. "The river to the north, it's our best chance." Hutch nodded, admiring her quick thinking and composure in the face of danger. "I'll take the rear, make sure no one gets left behind. You lead the way." With Dalia at the helm, the unlikely procession began their journey. The smoke grew thicker with each passing moment, and the roar of the approaching fire grew louder. Hutch urged the stragglers forward, his powerful form a reassuring presence at the back of the group. As they neared the river, a deafening crack split the air. A massive pine, weakened by the fire, began to topple. Hutch watched in horror as it fell directly in Dalia's path. Without hesitation, he surged forward, his heart pounding in his chest. In that moment, time seemed to slow. Hutch launched himself towards her, his powerful muscles propelling him forward with incredible speed. Hutch collided with Dalia, his massive form shielding her as they tumbled to the ground. The tree crashed down mere inches from where they lay, showering them with embers and broken branches. For a moment, they remained still, hearts racing in unison, the reality of their narrow escape sinking in. "Are you all right?" Hutch asked, his voice thick with concern as he helped Dalia to her feet. She nodded, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of gratitude and awe. "Thank you, Hutch. You saved my life." There was no time for further words as the fire raged on, its hungry flames devouring everything in their path. Together, Hutch and Dalia rallied the frightened animals, guiding them around the fallen tree and towards the safety of the river. The water came into view, a silver ribbon cutting through the smoke-filled landscape. Hutch and Dalia worked in perfect harmony, their movements synchronized as they helped the smaller creatures across the rushing current. Dalia's gentle encouragement complemented Hutch's strength, and together they ensured that even the most timid animals made it safely to the other side. As the last of the forest dwellers crossed the river, Hutch and Dalia stood side by side on the bank, watching the inferno consume their home. The heat was intense, the roar of the flames deafening, but in that moment, a profound sense of connection passed between them. They had faced this trial together, their bond forged stronger in the crucible of adversity. A few days passed, and the fire eventually burned itself out, leaving behind a landscape of ash and charred trees. The forest lay silent, a stark contrast to its usual vibrant life. But even in the midst of devastation, hope began to take root. Hutch and Dalia took on the role of leaders, guiding the displaced animals back to their homes and helping them rebuild. They worked tirelessly, clearing debris, finding food sources, and offering comfort to those who had lost everything. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Hutch found Dalia sitting alone on a hillside, overlooking the recovering forest. He settled beside her, their fur brushing in a familiar, comforting way. "You've been amazing these past weeks," Hutch said, his gruff voice softened by admiration. I've never seen anyone care so deeply for others." Dahlia turned to him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "We all need each other, Hutch, especially now. But I couldn't have done any of this without you." Hutch felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling he was beginning to recognize as love. He had always seen himself as a loner, someone who didn't need anyone else. But Dahlia had shown him the strength that comes from connection, from caring for others. As the forest slowly healed, so too did the hearts of its inhabitants. Hutch and Dahlia's unwavering dedication to their fellow creatures had not gone unnoticed. The once solitary bear found himself at the center of a community that looked to him for guidance and protection. It was a role he had never imagined for himself, yet one he embraced with a newfound sense of purpose. Dahlia, ever observant, noticed the change in Hutch. His gruff exterior had softened, revealing a gentleness that had always been there, hidden beneath layers of self-imposed isolation. She watched with quiet joy as he patiently taught young cubs how to fish, his massive paws guiding their smaller ones with surprising delicacy. One crisp autumn morning, as the forest was alive with the vibrant colors of changing leaves, Hutch sought out Dahlia. He found her by a babbling brook, her paws dipped in the cool water as she watched fallen leaves dance along the current. "Care for some company?" he asked, his deep voice carrying a hint of nervousness that surprised even him. Dahlia's eyes lit up at the sight of him. "Always," she replied, patting the mossy ground beside her. As Hutch settled next to her, he felt a familiar warmth spread through his chest. It was a feeling he had come to associate with Dahlia's presence, a comforting glow that chased away the lingering shadows of his past. "I've been thinking," Hutch began, his words careful and measured, "about us, about how much has changed since we met." Dahlia turned to face him, her eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and something deeper, something that made Hutch's heart race. "I used to think I was better off alone," he continued, his gaze fixed on the rippling water, "that caring for others was a weakness I couldn't afford, but you've shown me a different way, a better way." Dahlia's paw found his, their fingers intertwining in a gesture that felt as natural as breathing. "You've always been so full of love, Hutch," she said softly. "You just needed someone to believe in you as much as you believe in others." Hutch met her gaze, finding in her eyes a reflection of the love that had been growing in his own heart. With a gentleness that belied his size, he leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. It was a gesture of intimacy, of trust, of a bond that had weathered fire and flood and emerged stronger for it. "I love you, Dahlia," Hutch whispered, the words carrying the weight of a lifetime of longing. "I think I have from the moment I first saw you." Dahlia's response was a soft nuzzle, her breath warm against his fur. "And I love you." As the seasons turned, Hutch and Dahlia's love blossomed like the wildflowers that carpeted the forest floor. With their den as a sanctuary and their hearts intertwined, they decided to embark on a journey to explore the vast, uncharted regions of their woodland home. The morning of their departure dawned crisp and clear, the air filled with the promise of adventure. Dew glistened on spider webs strung between branches, creating a tapestry of diamonds that shimmered in the early light. Hutch and Dalia set out as the sun crested the eastern hills, their paws leaving gentle impressions in the soft earth. They ventured first into the ancient groves that lay to the west, where towering sequoias reached skyward, their massive trunks a testament to centuries of endurance. Hutch marveled at the way Dahlia's coat caught the speckled sunlight filtering through the canopy, transforming her into a creature of living gold. Together, they explored the hollows of these gentle giants, discovering worlds within worlds, colonies of ants building elaborate cities, families of squirrels chittering in the branches above, and even a wise old owl who shared tales of the forest's long history. As they journeyed deeper into unexplored territory, the landscape began to change. The dense woodland gave way to rolling meadows awash with wildflowers of every hue imaginable. Hutch and Dalia frolicked through seas of purple lupines and golden poppies, their laughter carried on the warm breeze. Butterflies danced around them, their delicate wings a kaleidoscope of colors against the clear blue sky. They crossed babbling brooks where water skimmers darted across the surface like living gemstones, and paused to watch schools of silver fish navigate the crystal-clear currents. In quiet pools formed by ancient rocks, they saw their reflections. Two bears, different in appearance but united in spirit, their eyes shining with the joy of shared discovery. As the day waned, they found themselves at the base of a majestic waterfall. The roar of cascading water filled the air, creating a misty veil that painted rainbows in the fading light. Hutch and Dalia sat side by side, paws touching, as they watched the sun set behind the falls, turning the world into a canvas of fiery oranges and deep purples. Under the cover of night, they ventured into a grove of bioluminescent mushrooms, their soft blue glow creating an otherworldly atmosphere. Fireflies danced around them, their lights pulsing in a hypnotic rhythm that seemed to echo the beating of the bears' hearts. Dalia nuzzled closer to Hutch, her warmth a comfort in the cool night air. "I never imagined the world could be so beautiful," Hutch murmured, his voice filled with wonder. Dalia smiled up at Hutch, her eyes reflecting the ethereal glow of the mushrooms. "The world is full of wonders when you open your heart to them," she whispered. As dawn broke, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, Hutch and Dalia continued their journey. They traversed a series of rolling hills, their paws sinking into lush carpets of moss that seemed to whisper ancient secrets with each step. The air was filled with the sweet scent of wild flowers and the melodious songs of birds welcoming the new day. As they crested a particularly steep hill, they came upon an unexpected sight. A group of forest creatures, rabbits with fur as soft as cloud wisps, deer with antlers that glimmered like polished silver, and foxes with coats of burnished copper, stood in a semicircle as if awaiting their arrival. A wise old owl perched on a nearby branch, his eyes twinkling with an intelligence that seemed to span centuries. He spoke, his voice rich and sonorous. "Welcome, friends. We've been expecting you." Hutch and Dalia exchanged puzzled glances. "You have?" Hutch asked, his usual gruffness softened by curiosity. The owl nodded sagely. "The forest has whispered of your coming, two bears, bound by love, respect, independence, and compassion, seeking the true heart of our realm." A young fawn stepped forward, her legs still wobbly with youth. "Will you come with us?" she asked, her voice as gentle as a summer breeze. "We want to show you something special." Intrigued, Hutch and Dalia agreed to follow their newfound guides. The procession wound its way through a series of hidden paths, ducking under low-hanging branches draped with delicate orchids and pushing through curtains of ivy that sparkled with morning dew. As they walked, the forest seemed to come alive around them. Butterflies with wings like stained glass fluttered alongside them, their iridescent colors shifting with each beat. Squirrels chattered excitedly overhead, leaping from branch to branch with acrobatic grace. Even the trees seemed to bend slightly, their leaves rustling in a welcoming chorus. Finally, they emerged into a clearing that took their breath away. It was a perfect circle, ringed by ancient trees whose branches intertwined overhead to form a natural dome. Shafts of sunlight pierced through the canopy, creating pools of golden light on the forest floor. But it was the inhabitants of the clearing that truly amazed Hutch and Dalia. Creatures of all kinds, predator and prey alike, coexisted in perfect harmony. A wolf lay peacefully beside a rabbit, while a hawk shared a perch with a mouse. The air was filled with a symphony of animal sounds, but instead of cacophony, it was a beautiful melody of coexistence. Seasons had passed since Dalia entered his life, seasons filled with whispered conversations beneath the stars, shared moments observing the vibrant tapestry of the forest they called home. Hutch found himself opening up, allowing her to see glimpses of the bear behind the brusqueness. And as their friendship blossomed, so too did a realization, an understanding that perhaps, just maybe, love was not a myth spun by the hopeful hearts of others. After they had their fill of berries, the two bears meandered through the woods, their steps synchronized. Hutch noticed the way Dalia moved with effortless grace, her gentle eyes scanning the branches above. Every so often, she would pause to nuzzle a curious squirrel or gently guide a lost hedgehog back to its burrow. Hutch watched in silent admiration, realizing that her whimsical spirit was not just an act of carefree abandon, but a profound understanding of life's interconnected tapestry. "Look there," Dalia whispered, pointing upwards to a cluster of stars that had begun to twinkle in the twilight sky. "The Great Bear." Hutch followed her gaze, his eyes tracing the constellation that mirrored their own forms. They lay down on their backs, the coolness of the earth beneath them, and gazed up at the heavens stretched out above, a celestial sea dotted with infinite points of light. Hutch felt something awaken within him, an appreciation for the boundless beauty of the universe, magnified by the bear beside him who shared in his wonder. As dusk turned to night, the forest came alive with nocturnal melodies, the hooting of owls harmonizing with the chorus of crickets. Hutch and Dalia played beneath the moon's silver beam, chasing each other around ancient trees and tumbling into piles of fallen leaves. Laughter echoed between them, a sound as pure and joyous as the babbling brooks that crisscrossed the land. When the first frost of winter whispered through the trees, Hutch and Dalia retreated to their den, a cozy haven nestled against a rocky outcrop. They gathered moss and dry leaves, lining their shelter with layers of warmth. Side by side, they curled up, sharing breaths and dreams as they entered the deep sleep of hibernation. Hutch felt the steady rhythm of Dalia's heart against his own, a soothing lullaby that promised safety and serenity throughout the cold months. Spring's thaw brought them back to the waking world, where they stretched languidly and stepped out into the renewed forest. Everything seemed brighter, more vivid with Dalia by his side. They frolicked through the thawing streams, splashing each other with icy water, and reveled in the rebirth of the land around them. Through seasons of plenty and times of scarcity, Hutch and Dalia remained steadfast, their bond unbreakable. They were two bears, two kindred spirits, intertwined by fate and choice, experiencing the grandeur of existence in ways neither could have ever imagined alone. In their union, they found strength, love, and endless possibilities, two souls journeying through the wilderness of life side by side. Hutch knew now that every moment was worth savoring, every day an opportunity to love more deeply. With Dalia by his side, the forest wasn't just a place to endure, it was home, a sanctuary where love blossomed like the wildflowers at their feet. And Hutch, once a solitary creature of the woods, had finally discovered that life's truest riches lay in the heart of another. Days melted into one another, each moment a treasure that Hutch never knew he'd long to experience. Whether they were caring for an injured badger or watching the dance of fireflies at twilight, Hutch found himself immersed in a life he had never imagined possible, one filled with companionship, care, and unbridled joy. In Dalia's presence, Hutch learned to see the world through her eyes. Where he had seen survival, she saw beauty. Where he had known solitude, she offered connection. And in her unwavering optimism, he discovered the resilience of his own heart. Together, they lived not just as two bears in the vastness of the forest, but as guardians of a life rich with purpose and shared joy, thriving in a bond that was as enduring as the stars that watched over them night after tranquil night.